Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Outspoken series, Black Incest Survivors, Unique Challenges and Barriers with Incest Aware. My name is Josephine Loren, and I am the community organizer for Incest Aware this year. Our agenda today, we're going to start with a land and labor acknowledgement. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what is Incest Aware, a quick invitation to self-care, and then Dr. Lori Pitts is going to take over to introduce our amazing panelists who will participate in a panel discussion, which will be recorded, and then we'll end the recording to start the Q&A. So our land and labor acknowledgement. I acknowledge that I am located in Lenapehoking, the unceded territory of the Lenape people in the Bronx, New York. I further acknowledge that stories of the purchase of this land were lies told to cover up the systematic genocide of the Lenape people. Despite this genocide, the Lenape are a living people whose culture and wisdom I continue to learn from. Additionally, I acknowledge the legacy of slavery in the United States and the enslaved African people, whose labor was exploited for generations to help establish the economy of this country. The gruesome legacy of slavery and the racist laws and practices that continue to be passed and implemented impact American culture and our institutions at every level. Incest Aware honors the Indigenous and enslaved people's contributions and stewardship throughout the United States. We celebrate their resilience. It is our individual and collective responsibilities to consistently recommit ourselves to the liberation of historically marginalized people. Until we acknowledge the atrocities of the past, we cannot walk together into the future. So, Incest Aware has two main goals. One is to bring the topic of incest back into the mainstream public discourse, and two is to do so by providing community-based solutions for incest prevention, intervention, recovery, and justice. We are an alliance of organizations that are committed to anti-incest work throughout the United States as well as internationally. These are some of the organizations and individuals who are committed to this work within our alliance. And you can go to our website to learn more about each of these organizations. If you would like to connect to any of the alliance members, you can do so directly from our website. You can also sign up for the Incest Aware newsletter, which will keep you abreast of anything that's happening in our community by signing up on our homepage. And if you want to ask any specific questions about Incest Aware, you can reach out to me personally at hello@josephineann.com. Now, an invitation to self-care. Today, we're going to be talking about incest and racism, so please prepare your nervous systems in any way that you need. If you feel you need support to help manage any triggers or anything else that might arise during this conversation, please call the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-4673. You can also reach out to any of the organizations that offer direct services within the Incest Aware Alliance at the website shown. Thank you so much for joining us today. Dr. Lori, take it away.
I am the founder and owner of Still Whole Wellness, and Still Whole Wellness is a company that specializes in treating people that have sexual trauma in their history. And the way that I do that is in a couple different facets, the primary being life coaching. So let me just kind of back up a little bit. So I was kind of working in about 7 years ago, working as a substance abuse counselor. And as I'm working with these clients, I'm kind of noticing something that was very just straight across the board. Like once I stopped talking about the fact that they were using substances and started getting into the root of things, sexual trauma was at the root. And so I decided at that time that, okay, I have sexual trauma in my history, being a 4-time survivor myself. And I said, you know what? I want to create a space where these people can come and actually heal this, because it was just getting out of control. It was literally across the board. I forget the percentage at this moment. I want to say it was something like 87% or something like that, where sexual trauma was in their history. And so I really wanted to do something. I wanted to occupy that space. So Still Whole Wellness was born literally from that idea. And so life coaching being a part of that, as well as other holistic healing remedies such as Reiki. And I also do shamanic journeying with my clients as well. These are healing features that we've used for generations, to be able to heal ourselves, especially in the African American community. And so I wanted to bring those healing uh, properties back to the community because they have been in some ways stolen from us. You know, Reiki is something that it originated with African Americans, and a lot of people think that it started in Japan. Um, so I wanted to bring those things back to our culture and be able to utilize those to help people to heal. I've been in business for 5 years now, and I truly, truly love what I do. I love my clients, and I like to think that they feel it. So again, my name is Dr. Lori. I'm going to be your moderator for today. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Guyton to allow her to introduce herself.
Grand Rising, everyone. My name is Dr. Vanessa. I am a survivor of military sexual trauma and the founder of Hush No More. I'm a survivor advocate for what I call the hush topics: sexual assault, domestic violence, human trafficking, child sexual abuse, incest, and all of those topics in our community that families, friends, organizations have a hard time discussing. I travel all around the world speaking on these topics, encouraging communities to hush no more, to show love and kindness, and to have a safe space for those that are needing the help that a lot of times we have not received. And so I am truly honored to be on this panel with you all. And I did put my information in the chat. You can reach out to me. I love connecting. I love talking about advocacy. And I love changing the world together. It's so important that you're here. So peace and blessings.
Thank you, Dr. Guyton. Now we will have Ms. Shirkydra. Ms. Shirkydra, can you please introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, it's a blessing to be here. I'm Shirkydra Roberts. I'm the CEO and founder of my speaking platform, which is IAME. It's about impacting the world, aspiring to be greater than your yesterday, and then motivating other people to do the same. We all have a story, and we can utilize that story to either keep us in a dark place or breathe the light in the dark place. So for me, as somebody that's in the military, as an engineer in a male-dominated field, I understand the topics like this that are not discussed until we discuss them. So my objective is just really to be a voice, not just for the Me Too community, but those subjects that Dr. Vanessa was talking about. Is you have a voice, but you have to create it. And sometimes it takes somebody to step up and be that voice for somebody else to realize that they have one. So that's my goal as a life coach, as a motivational speaker, and as somebody who wears a uniform every day. So I'm excited to be here. Community is everything. Having one voice is everything. Coming together and knowing that we're combating this thing together, because that's what it takes. That's everything. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you again for having me.
That is facts. I like what you said, Shirkydra, that community is everything. You know, I was saying before everyone jumped on that we can't do this by ourselves. You know, it absolutely takes a collective effort. So thank you so much for all that you do. And then last but certainly not least, Miss Nubia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nubia
Blessings.
Duvall Wilson. Thank you so much to Joe for getting this put together. Thank you, Dr. Pitts, for moderating it. So I am a survivor of sibling sexual abuse, child sexual abuse, and I didn't start remembering my abuse until about 2016, as I was raising my 3-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son. Since then, I have been a mental health and sexual trauma advocate. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have 2 businesses that I run, a PR agency and a TV and film production company, and I'm a published author. And the second thing that I published was a short story or extended novella about my journey to heal. I started speaking out about PTSD and surviving sexual abuse because I noticed that the conversation that was in the mainstream was really about the act and not the aftermath. And the long-term effects of sexual abuse, whether in your childhood or adulthood, are with you forever. And the healing never stops. It's a constant journey, and I have enjoyed sharing my journey with others through the community that I've created and that continues to grow. And so it's one of the reasons why I do it, is to help others heal as well. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, Nubia. You know, you hit on something there that I talk about with my clients all the time. In fact, my tagline for Still Whole Wellness is where healing happens every day. This is something that absolutely it does affect you. Those trauma responses can sometimes really they can really just knock you off your center. And so, being able to create spaces such as this where we can talk about those trauma responses in a very open, very safe space, that's what helps people to heal. So thank you so much for being here. So now we get to jump into the juice, as I like to call it. So the first thing that I wanted us to kind of touch on is, and Nubia, I'll kind of pose this question to you first, since you actively are in that mental health space. There seems to be a shift maybe that is starting to happen, but hasn't quite shifted all the way with the African American community as it relates to actually talking about this, getting the help. And all of us on here are most likely advocates in some regard. I'm curious to know your thoughts on what we can do as advocates to kind of bridge that gap a little bit more, and what spaces do you think we need to occupy to be able to get this information to the community?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And we could spend all day on that one.
Yes.
From my experience, one is I think that in general, we have a hard time being vulnerable because we are expected to be so strong and we have endured so much. And I find with my own family, even that talking publicly about your hardships and about any type of challenges you might have is seen as a weakness, or as a way that you are going to be pushed down even further, or devalued somehow. And I come from a family that actually is quite public facing. My father is an artist and musician from the 60s. So he has been in the public eye for a long time, in certain social circles, well known. So, there's that idea of like, this is like something behind closed doors and you don't talk about it. But if we don't talk about it, we can't heal. And so one of the things that I've tried to communicate with my family is the concept of intergenerational trauma, and that you can't heal your trauma if you're not facing it.
Yes.
And so my ask of the community is to have grace with us, and to realize that we are still learning as a people, as a race, to heal, and heal ourselves, heal our families. Our families traditionally have been fractured because of slavery in this country, and our sense of pride sometimes prevents us from being able to be vulnerable and talk about how we really need to do better with each other from an interrelationship standpoint with family and our Black community, to really dig deep and talk about the realities of what we're dealing with. And Black women are more prone to being sexually abused by the time they're 18 than any other race in this country. Maybe Native Americans could be just as high. I don't know if the research on that. And so we need to be really intentional about how we're looking at those statistics and how we're going to break the cycle. I'll leave
Absolutely.
it at that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that you are absolutely right. We can't heal what we choose to not see. I've shared publicly before that, as I was kind of beginning the healing journey, I come from church. as most of us do, with my dad being a pastor in Los Angeles for many years. And I was starting this journey of trying to heal, and did what I knew to did what I had been told all my life that I should do, which was to go to the church with my pain, right? Because the church is supposed to be the healing space. And the response that I got there was jarring at best, and it was very much what you stated there. It was like, don't talk about it, just it was very suggested that I just keep it quiet and keep it to myself. And, there was something intuitively inside of me that said, okay, I know that this is the space that I'm supposed to be going to get these answers and to get this healing, but that is not it. And so I was so grateful that I did not take that advice and continue to heal. Now, Dr. Guyton, Now, while you are not an incest survivor, but we do still, of course, welcome you into this space as a survivor of sexual trauma, standing in the space for Miss Sierra today. You have kind of a different perspective on that, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what we can do as advocates to be able to kind of bridge that gap to help us to get the help that we need.
I think that, I'm all about deciding to hush no more. Well, first of all, you even have to remember your trauma. So a lot of times we don't even remember our trauma, or we don't believe that it's occurring in our community. We want to believe that none of this is happening. So you have to get to a point to let people know this is real. This is really happening. You have to protect your children. What I do is I try to bring people together as a community and not talk about the topic. What I have seen is that in our community, they don't want to show up for programs about incest, about sexual assault. They don't want to come for that. But they for some free food. They will come for clothes and a giveaway. They'll come for fun and a party. And so I believe our advocacy has to come with a different perspective. The perspective should be to bring people together out of love and kindness, and then you drop it on them when they get there. That's what I do. So you're not coming for incest because they're not going to show up. And then people feel like if I go to an event, you're going to think that I'm a survivor. You're going to think that it happened to me. And they're still embarrassed and they're still shamed. So they're not going to come, even if they are a survivor. So making it look different. I do a lot of community events. Like I have retreats, I have talent shows. And in that space, we provide the resources in that space. So you just happen to be here with us. And so that's what I think it looks like. You can't make it look like it's about the topic because people are not ready to discuss the topic. And we're working on that, but that's just reality. And they're not going to show up. So that's I think you have to change the face of advocacy and what it looks like. And that's what I do. When I go into communities, you're not coming to an incest event. We're not going to talk about that. But I'm going to drop it on you while you're there. You're going to get some resources and you'll be able to come back.
There you go.
I like that perspective. I like that approach rather. I don't think I knew that you had something different, but I didn't even think of it in that way. And I think that is beautiful. I like what you said about just bringing community together. I think that is very, very important. And the next time you have a talent show, I'm just saying I would like to be a part. But
April 29th, during
April 29th?
We have a talent show. We'll probably have about 2,000 people there.
Oh, wow.
We'll be there and we're going to have advocacy services and you're going to get a business card, information, and some pamphlets about what you do.
I love it. I love it. In another life, I thought I was Whitney Houston, but we'll talk about that another time. So Shirkydra, so when we talk about, this community and just putting voice to this sensitive topic, I instantly think of you because I've watched you over the past couple of years that we've known each other, and I see the way you move in this space, and you're out there and you're talking about these things. What would you add to that question there?
I think with kind of like what Dr. Vanessa is saying, I bring a different energy to it. I've been to events where the energy around the subject or the topic it makes you feel like you have to be at a low scale, or you have to sit in how it made you feel when it happened. And I more so say, you know what? Yeah, that happened to me, but I'm gonna tell you what I took from that, how strong I am, how courageous I am, what I can do with how I came out of that situation now. And so, now I'm known for the energy that I bring to it. Yes. And even though I may not go into exactly what happened, when the topic comes up, it's more that overarching, I am who I am because this is a part of me, but let me show you what I've built from that. And I believe that not just making the events about, when I have these conferences or I'm doing workshops, even one meeting I did when I was in Seattle, it was more of how do you, the not really cliche, but that purpose after pain. You've experienced and you have a story. We understand that. You can live in that story as if it is present, or you can make sure that you continue to move forward and build a life outside of that brings that wholeness. Because a lot of us, when we're starting to talk about it, you're going to deal with society. You're going to deal with, especially the close family members, you're going to deal with rejection. You're going to deal with abandonment. Everything that the trauma made you feel, you're going to feel it as soon as you start talking. And if you're not already ready to create like, okay, this is coming. But when it comes, this is how I'm gonna respond to it, because I know who I am, I know where I'm going, I know what I'm headed towards, which is the healing process is ongoing. So for me, when I'm talking my story, it's more what type of energy am I gonna surround around my story? Because society and other people give me the energy they want from it, but it's up to me to control. When I go in and I say I'm a Me Too and I'm a victor, and going through 8 years of sexual abuse as a child, there will be some sad faces, but my smile is on my face because I'm like, I overcame that. And I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do with it. In this room, you will not leave here the same when I finish talking to you. So that's just kind of been my overarching response to things when it comes to, yes, we have a story, but we can control the energy around our story and how we transfer that as a message to people that we interact with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And do you find that have you noticed that there is like a shift in the, kind of like what Dr. Guyton was saying about, the shame that we all kind of carry with that, and it kind of shifting from us not talking about it versus us believing that it was normal? Because I feel like in some spaces, one of the reasons why people don't realize that they actually need the help is because they really kind of felt like it was something normal. Have you noticed any of that?
I do. I feel like even when I came out to my loved ones, it was like, okay, we get it. Multiple people, like Nubia mentioned, it happens so much within our community that it's happened to our family members. It's done happened to the generation before us, the generation before them. And it's so consistent that it's said like, okay, if your dad, your brother, your uncle, sister, cousin, it's just like, y'all were kids, or okay, we'll deal with it. And
kissing cousins.
There you go. And I put in this book that I'm publishing in April, called Dear Brain, You Have My Attention. And I talk about growing up in that household where what happens in this house stays in this house. That the things and the things that were said to us as kids that took our voice away. You didn't have to say you don't talk to grown folks or stay out of grown folks' business. Just the certain things that kind of put us in a box as kids where our voice did not matter, or this is common, this is normal. If I do say something, am I gonna get in trouble? And even as adults, I feel like you still get that. When I start talking, what is society gonna say? What is family gonna say? It's still that when I say something, I might get in trouble.
That is so incredibly true. That is a piece of my parenting that I had to go back and I had to fix because my children's father and I are no longer together. And I did have that idea when we first divorced of, telling them, hey, what happens over here, don't go back and talk to dad about it. And I had to go back and first apologize to my children for taking their voice away from them. And then I had to let them understand, like, no, you have two parents and you should be able to talk to both parents. If there is something that is happening over here that you are uncomfortable with, you should be able to voice that. Go ahead, Dr. G.
So I think it's normalized in slavery. Was it happened, you accept it, you can't talk back, you can't say nothing, this is how it is. Yep. And everybody goes through it. And so even my grandmother was like, well, all of us have been in bad relationships, all of it has happened. So you'll be okay, get over it. You're strong, especially as women, you're a strong Black woman, woman, you could take it, keep moving forward. So it has been normalized, and we're finally getting to the point to say, no, this is wrong, and we're not taking it anymore. But we were taught as a community that this is how it's supposed to go, that men can take advantage of you, that your cousins, and I've even seen it in a monologue, in a monarch society. They marry cousins, so this is how it is. You can't marry outside of your family because we're trying to keep the money, we're trying to keep the generation within. So it was normalized and taught to us that this was okay. So I think you're absolutely right about the normalcy.
Yeah, I find that quite often. And we have to get to a space as a collective where we're able to kind of remove that, from our society as a whole. Now, Nubia, I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. How do you feel like we can overcome that fear of worsening the dynamics that we face when we do speak out? Like, what can we give to people to help them to reduce that fear?
Help them reduce the fear of coming out, you're saying?
Yeah, of speaking out about the abuse.
I resonate with what Shirkydra said and Dr. Guyton about the community and about how this makes you stronger. There's a term that I've started to learn more about called post-traumatic growth, which really speaks to what Shirkydra is talking about. This idea that by facing it, you are stronger. I think what's interesting is when I first started talking about this, friends, not really family at first, but it was more friends were like, why are you talking about this? Why can't you just leave it in the past? You're just not letting go. Just let go of it. And then you don't have to, it's like, why do I need to let go of, like, by me talking about this, I am letting go of the cycle of trauma. That's how I see it. If I don't talk about it, and if I don't recognize my own trauma, then I am also not recognizing the trauma that I've passed down to my children. Because even from a scientific standpoint, your trauma many believe is in your DNA and can take many cycles of generations for that to be undone. And so if I'm not giving my own children the skills to understand their emotions, understand natural triggers that they just might have in their life because of whatever reason, I'm trying to do that for myself, and I want to be able to pass that on to them. And if I'm in a community that is telling me you can't talk about this, then that is hindering my growth, my post-traumatic growth, and my future generations growth. So I think there needs to be awareness that this is like population level healing. We can't do this in a silo, which is why we do what we do, which is why we're here today, and so I think the more that the population, more that the community and the people in society understand how important this work is from a mental health standpoint, how my ability to recognize my triggers before I go out to a movie or before I go to dinner where I might see something that triggers me, that is a domino effect, right? And you see it in so many other ways, how being able to be aware of your PTSD triggers can impact your ability to be a great leader, ability to be a parent. And so yeah, that's what I'll say on that.
You are so right. One of the first things that I work with my clients on in Still Whole Wellness in my coaching program is, one, how to talk to their loved ones about the assault that they have endured, and then also to help them to connect with just what you're saying now, those trauma responses. These are things that we wouldn't even really think about. We think that it is us, when in actuality, it is our trauma. For instance, things like procrastination. We might think that we are just a person who is a procrastinator, not understanding that that is something that is directly related to trauma. Someone who thinks that they're shy. No, you're not shy. That's your trauma that is showing. And so I walk my clients through that process of helping them to identify what those trauma responses are. Because when we hear about this, we typically think of the common ones: depression, addiction, promiscuity, those being like the top three, when there are just a multitude of others, so this is the reason why it's just like ridiculous for someone to say, just leave it in the past. I can't leave something in the past that is showing up in my today. I have to face it. I have to deal with it. I have to learn the tools to be able to work through it so that I can see myself in a different way, in the way that I show up in the world, and I can then see the world in a different way. Super, super important. Now, Shirkydra, we've been talking about this strength, that we tend to, this energy that we tend to carry, specifically as African American women, and the strength component that kind of goes along with being a survivor and that stigma. I want you to kind of speak on that for a moment.
I think for me, I had to learn, and I even teach this to people I get in front of, is I make sure that I'm okay with having a bad day. I'm okay with crying. I'm okay with feeling weak today. I don't feel like motivating today. I'm not feeling like a leader today, because it allows those around me to also be comfortable with saying it. It's one thing to do it for self, but it's different to do it for others. So when, for example, when I get in front of my guys and I talk to them about what's important to me, I also share what's important to me when it's concerning them. I care about your mental health status. I care when you're not having a bad day. I don't want you to feel like you can't have a bad day, because we won't always succeed at every mission. We won't always be happy when we come to work. Your home will overflow into your work day if you allow it to. Your mental health will show up in your work ethic if you allow it to. And so that gives that platform, and now they open up like, oh, she's human. Instead of saying, nope, I expect you to get it right on the head every time. I expect you to come in here and be happy. Like, joy is one thing. And I think religion plays a big impact on how we feel about being vulnerable, because we're taught when you don't have joy, then your faith is altered. Or if you're not happy every day, you're not grateful. I think we have to separate when it comes to healing and understanding sanctification, the process of building a walk of faith. And so for me, I know that I am strong, but I do know that I'm not strong all the time. I do know that I can endure a lot, but I also know those things that can sit me down and make me really rethink a situation. But that doesn't mean I stay down. I know this too shall pass. So it's about capitalizing what I learned in faith along with what I'm learning through, I went through CPT, I went through the sessions for cognitive process therapy and learning how to reteach my brain how to think, because spiritually, we learn how to emotionally and spiritually heal, as in forgiveness. That taught me to forgive and see people out of the eyes of faith versus out of the eyes of pain. But we've not always taught how to retrain our brains to say, no, you don't feel this way about the person. It's how this person is making you feel is why you see them the way that you do. And so because I got to be strong, I won't open up to you. So that rolls into relationships, friendships, all these other things, like you said, is I am emotionally aware of myself. Therefore, I can open up and allow other people to be emotionally aware with me as well. So now we created a safe place where you can cry. I want you to come cry. And then after you cry, we're gonna talk about it. You can have a bad day today, but just know tomorrow I'm gonna reassess how you're doing, and we're gonna press. So it's that action step of, no, it is okay to be at your lowest moment, to have that day, to have that moment, even if it's a month, if it's a year, if you need a whole year to just cry, baby, take your year. Just know that it does not have to last forever, but it will happen. It can happen.
Yes, I encourage my clients to put a time stamp on that thing. You can feel. We have to feel in order for us to heal, right? But put a timestamp on it. Otherwise that can just kind of roll over, and you look up and it's 3-4 years down the line and you're still in that same space. Dr. Guyton, I would like for you to kind of talk on that. When we consider the strength that we are often expected to have as African Americans and how that impacts our ability to really utilize our voice.
So I deal with that today. I'm supposed to be strong because not only was I a soldier, I'm a mother, I'm a Black woman, I'm an advocate, and I help other people. So people don't even give me the space sometimes to feel down, to have my depression days. I realize I have to take that space. We're just created to be perfect. And like, you don't have any problems. You can do this, you can do that. And I think part of it is we wear these masks. And so we show up as if everything is okay when it's not. So we never give people the opportunity to say, oh, maybe she is having a bad day, because we want to come across as having it together. So I really deal with that on a daily basis. And I've been taking self-care, saying that on Mondays, I don't work. I've created boundaries for myself. I've created rules for myself. If I'm having a bad day, I have the right to say today is a bad day and I'm not doing nothing. I don't have the right to go past 2 days, though. That's my timestamp. Thank you for that word, too.
Yes.
I never knew what to call it, but I can't be depressed for more than 2 days. But I have the right to say the day sucks and I don't want to do nothing. And it's okay, and give myself permission to do that. And I think that's what is important, that although I may have depression, although that I have dealt with trauma, I am still a strong woman, and that I create the definition of being a strong woman, and that you do not have the right to create what a strong woman looks like for me. And so I've taken my power back. I am a strong woman. I'm just going to have some bad days. And it's okay that I can go through this. And I'm a strong woman because I get through the bad days. I'm a strong woman because I'm overcoming trauma. I'm a strong woman because I am healing. I'm a strong woman because I'm encouraging other women to heal. I'm a strong woman because I'm creating that space for this sister to heal, right?
Yes.
And I think that's considered a strong woman. When I can go through my crap and show up for your crap and be okay that we got crap, and I'm gonna love you through it. And so that's how I look at being a strong woman.
I love that. I love that you said that you get to determine what strength looks like for you. That's a word. That is a word right there. Because I mean, yeah, I mean, if we don't define that within ourselves, we open the door for someone to then do that for us. And so I'm right there with you, Dr. G. I definitely have my self-care days. I definitely have my days where I will tell clients very simply and lovingly, I am not my best self today. And so I dare not try and hold space for you when I'm not centered myself. So give me a day. Give me a day and we will reschedule. And I'm so blessed that my clients are super loving and flexible in that regard. Now, Nubia, now we were talking previously and just kind of looking at the notes here. You were expressing about the need, for survivors to have therapists, and not just survivors, but specifically Black survivors to have therapists. And you mentioned a piece about the marriage, especially if you're like in an interracial marriage. I'd like for you to speak to that for a moment.
Yeah, sure. And we Black people know that traditionally, when you're telling your parent that you want to see a therapist, they're like, what? Why? There's a whole stigma against that. But I have always loved I almost studied psychology in college. That's how much I love psychology, and I want to understand the brain and interrelationships. But so I was in therapy actually before I started to remember my abuse, because I always had anxiety. To your point, Dr. Pitts, I was like, why am I always anxious? Why am I such a control freak? And I realized it was going to get worse after I had my daughter, because I'm such a high achieving person and I'm so hard on myself. I was like, I'm going to go back to work for maternity leave. I'm going to be a hot mess. So I spent my maternity leave with my baby and then also going to therapy. And I'm glad I did, but it took 2 more years to actually realize, or almost 3 years to actually realize, that this anxiety was all coming from the trauma of my childhood. And so one of the things I realized, because I was a married woman and a wife and a mother at that time still, that this was going to impact my marriage too, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the books that my therapist told me to read was Courage to Heal, which actually has a section in the back of the book for couples, whether you're married or not. From there, realizing that having a therapist, whether you're going to have a therapist that's solo therapist or a therapist that's with your partner, for couples, that therapist really needs to understand trauma and also have some empathy for the Black experience. And I was lucky that my first therapist did, but so not all therapists do. And there was a therapist that tried to minimize my abuse. And that's when I was like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, that's further traumatizing.
Yeah, it's further traumatizing.
Yeah.
And, talking about the number of times things happen and, oh, you can get over that. And I'm like, excuse me? No, that's not how this works. And from an interracial standpoint, depending on the races of, the two partners, there are other things at play, especially if you're a Black woman with a white partner, from a historical standpoint, from an exoticizing standpoint, and a power play standpoint. And not to say that it's something that you like, not to say that, interracial marriages can't work and that, these things are like so big and grandiose that you can't get over it, but they're there and it creates additional complexities. And so I think having a therapist, whether you're in an interracial relationship or not, but having a couples therapist that can really understand how to dig deep and be empathetic and understand the trauma. And again, going back to Black trauma is really important. And it might take you more than one therapist to find. On paper, they might look great. And as I know, we need more Black therapists out there. you know, and right now therapists are just in short supply in general. I mean, if you're looking for a therapist and you want it to be covered by your insurance, good luck. It's really, really hard. So, so this is also just like a PSA. If somebody is thinking about getting a degree in psychology right now and you're a person of color, please do it. Just we need you.
Yes, yes, we do. I want to say that that's part of the reason of why I chose to occupy this space. You know, in addition to, when I was first starting my healing journey, I came across an amazing therapist. Her name is Susan Little. I always shout her out. She's in the high desert. She's absolutely amazing. But there was two primary challenges with Susan, and I still see her to this day. Don't get me wrong, but there were two things that stood out for me. One, she was not a survivor. And although she does have understanding of the Black experience, she herself is not African American. And so because of that, I was like Susan, you're dope, you're super great, but there was more that I needed. And I was kind of learning during that process that I have to be intuitive about who I take my pain to.
There you go.
Because not everyone is equipped with what it is that Lori needs to be able to handle Lori's pain and be able to hold space for me. So I had to learn how to really be very, very guided and not just impulsive on who I took my pain to. And that also was is the way that I have approached even speaking with family members about the abuse. You know, I had to kind of take a look. You know, I remember sitting at a family reunion and just kind of looking around and just thinking like, who would be able to receive this information in the best way that could be healthy for us both, to not further traumatize me and to not cause them any pain either. And I think that is a really important piece that we need to consider, you know, when we are reaching out for help, whether it be a mental health professional or otherwise. Like we need to use that God-given intuition and allow that to guide us in seeking that help. Now I have a question. Shirkydra, do you feel that there is a wrong way to inform our families about abuse? And if so, what can you give us an example of what that might look like?
I don't feel like it's a wrong way. I feel there's an understanding that everybody's not going to take it how you want them to.
Facts.
Everybody's not. What we have to understand in any community is when we respond to people, we cannot get upset of how they respond back to what we've given them. And that's in any form of fashion, whether it's religion, sexuality, whether it is, no matter what it is, you have to also allow people to feel how they want to feel. I do believe that there should be a level of ownership in how you do it, so it doesn't come out in anger, strife. Like it doesn't come out in a form where people are not receptive to it. And so I don't feel like there's a wrong way to do it. I think it's about having the strategy of how you want to do it when you want people to be some sort of receptive or hear it, or, you know, at a location, do we want to be at a barbecue and then be like, hey, you know what I'm saying? So it's logic and strategy behind it, but I feel like, no, the moment we put you in the box of you need to say it like this and do it like this, now we're part of the problem too. You know what I mean? So it's like, no, be free to say it how you say it. Just ask yourself, is it the right time? Not really right time. There's never really a right time. It's just your time. But is this the best place for people to receive what I'm saying? And I tell people, I called my mother. It was like 2 a.m. I dealt with anxiety as well. And like I said, I'm in the military, and I just got tired of not sleeping. And you can't function in this in the military, sleepless nights. And I remember going to my first therapist. Like Nubia said, it took me a while to find a therapist that fit what I needed. And I got tired of not remembering the last time I had a full night of sleep. And I was 25 years old. And I had the sleepless nights, the broken sleep, the anxiety, the closed doors, cracked doors, open doors. And with my experience, a closed and open door meant a lot to me. You know, I knew what my triggers was. I own my triggers. I knew what they were. And once that trigger is actively in your life, people don't even realize that home can be a trigger if you're allowed to. Your room, your bathroom, I don't care where it is, something that reminds you of a traumatic experience is now an automatic trigger. And so I got to a point where I was like, it's 2:00. I'm tired. And I truly knew that in order for me to start healing, first, I got to own it myself. But two, I need to confront and talk to the people that are involved with this thing. And that's when I believe truly the healing started. And it wasn't the right time. It wasn't, I don't believe, the right place. My mom, you know, she was in Texas. I was in Cali. And I picked up the phone and was like, okay, this is the time. Here it is, because I got tired. I got tired.
Right. I love that you are aware of your triggers.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, that right there is just such a huge piece of the pie, you know, is it not? Right? You know, just being aware of what your triggers are, you know, that right there can really just change the game. Dr. G, do you feel like the family can still be whole after we disclose our abuse?
I do, but I don't think the family is taught how to be whole. There's manual for first of all, they know real manual for parents how to be a mom and a daddy anyway, right?
That part.
Figure it out. But nobody talks to you about what if your child comes to you and tell them that this is happening. What do you say? How do you love on them? How do you give them that safe space when they're an adult and they're coming forward and dealing with your own trauma? Because it's traumatic as a parent to hear this, you know. Our goal as parents is to protect our children. So you have to process your own trauma, but also love your child as well, no matter what age they are, right? Or I've seen parents get upset and say, they never told me. You're mad because they never told you? Like, so processing the emotion and not projecting on the victim, essentially, right? And so, but I do believe that we can be whole if we're taught how to be whole, if we have that conversation, if we have the safe space. And when I'm speaking, I'll tell people, when someone come and tell you about whatever trauma they're going through, really all you should be saying is, how can I help you? What do you need from me? That's it. And then we work through it from those two questions, you know, and love them. I love you, and reassuring them that I love you and I'm here for you. And that's the step. But we have to talk to the families in our communities of how to be in this space. They don't know what to do. You know, like you don't know. Nobody tells us. We don't talk about it. So we can be whole if we have the knowledge. And I always say awareness plus knowledge equals prevention.
Yeah.
How we create this for our children, you know.
Absolutely.
Families, and you know, and I always say, don't, the little slick comments, we don't care to hear them. Your personal opinion does not matter because you take the focus off the survivor. And I do that all the time. But yeah, the family can remain whole and you can thrive and you can love again, no matter what you go through.
I believe that as well. But I definitely agree with what you're saying, that we do need to, I don't know, maybe, you know, create something where a program of some sort where it is specific to being able to help the family as a unit. I love working with family units, to where they can begin that process of healing and have those open, you know, conversations and discussions. You know, I myself, I didn't, I had that, but I didn't have it from the person that I expected it or wish that it could have come from. My lineage, and I say this all the time, it stops with me. My great-grandmother was raped by a white man and got pregnant with my grandmother. My grandmother was sexually assaulted. My mother was sexually assaulted. And then I was sexually assaulted. And so I say that it stops with me. Now, because of my mom's assault, she was not in the headspace to be able to help me with my pain. And so my father was the one that was able to jump in and was able to kind of navigate that experience for me. And while I'm grateful that daddy was there, do I wish it had been mom? Absolutely. But I understand that you can't give what you don't have. So yeah, I look forward to I don't know, maybe I will create that. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So so this concludes the panel portion for today. And so we are going to stop recording. Thank you so much for the panelists for your input. This has been a beautiful experience for me. What a way to start my weekend. Thank you all so very much. So I would like for anyone who has questions, if you have something that you would like to add to the conversation that you've taken part in today, I give you permission to do that now.